episode of Inside Out, and today we have a topic which I think should be a bit of concern to a lot of us in the country now. If you've noticed a trend in society today, the word baby mama has crept into our dictionary. Everywhere you go, you hear somebody say, this is this person's baby mama and baby daddy. It doesn't seem like marriage is such a big deal anymore. Like, there's no reason to wait to be married to have kids. Marriages are collapsing. We have massive, very expensive weddings, and 1 year down the line, there's no marriage again. And the question is, what has happened to our marital values? And I think I have a panel that will do absolute justice to this topic. I'm going to start my introduction from my right. Let me introduce to you Mr. Patrick Okonkwo. He's a writer and a motivational speaker, and he's also a marriage counselor. Sir, you're welcome to Inside Out. Next to him is Mr. Kingsley Nongo. Am I correct? He's in property management. He's been married for 18 years. Very hard to find in this day and age.
Thank you.
Mrs. Adedoyi Omoni Yojo, she's an aviation executive. You're welcome to Inside Out. And lastly, Mr. Omotayo Shitele. He's a retired banker and he has been married for 29 years. Okay, and the last shall be the first. The oldest shall be the first. Which would be Mr. Oshitele, yes? What, you have been married for 29 years. That is, a child at 29 really should be getting ready to marry again. Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, I think you've been a veteran. Can you first of all give us a bit of background, what it was in the past? How was it for you? When did you get married? Why did you decide? What's your story?
I got married 29 years ago. Mm-hmm. Then I started work with United Bank for Africa, where I retired, say, about 18 years ago. What prompted me to marriage?
Yes.
That then I was living a bachelor's life. And I thought that if I cook at home, my food always get wasted. Because if you cook this thing make delica, I alone cannot finish it. I'll have some leftover. So I thought of it that if I cook today, the portion will be thrown off tomorrow.
Are you saying you got married because of food?
No, I said not because of food. I'm making my point.
Yeah.
So that prompted me to get married early.
Okay.
That I don't encourage wastage in my life.
That's such a strange reason. That's like the
no,
last
hold on, I'm coming.
Okay.
So I now went to search for, I've been dating women. But thank God, God gave me my own flesh.
Soulmate.
Yes, which is my woman. And today, we've been living perfectly together. We have not had any disputes. And I pray such no dispute will ever come our way. What prompted me into marriage, it is not for anything. I just believe that, one, like I said earlier, it is because I don't want to encourage wasteful spending. And I believe that if I have the second partner with me, at least what I have, both of us can be sharing it. So that was what first prompted me into marriage.
You know why I'm waiting for you to say, I met this woman, I loved her, and but you're talking about wasting food.
That's the second stage. You asked a question that what prompted me into it, and I told you. Now I've been dating a woman, normal.
Yes.
And one thing is that when you are dating a woman, you must understand her way of life.
I don't want to start the conversation because, like I said, I know why I'm asking what I'm asking. Maybe let me talk to you, Mr. Kingsley.
Yes, please.
You are also married.
Yes, sir.
How long have you been married?
18 years.
18 years?
Yes.
Okay. Let me ask you. It's good to see this kind of panel, Let me ask you, what prompted you to get married?
Well, I've always wanted to have a family. Yeah, growing up as a young man, I've always been passionate about family. Unfortunately, my passion was born out of pain. I give you a little background about my family. I come from a family where we were 13 children from 4 different women.
Wow.
So you can imagine. Well, I
so
knew.
Your father had 4 wives? Or?
No, not 4 wives. 13 children from 4 different women.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the kind of relationship my father and my mother had wasn't wonderful. You know, I actually watched my dad beat up my mom and things like that. And I knew this wasn't marriage. So I made up my mind that I was going to do it differently. As a matter of fact, I used to even tell my dad that if God keeps you alive, I'll show you what marriage really is. So I always had a desire for marriage. Fortunately for me, I had uncles who had good marriages, so they became like my role models.
I was going to say that, didn't that like affect
no.
negatively?
They became like my role model. I knew that wasn't the right thing, so I decided to look out and see what was right. And I was in a relationship before I met this woman I married, and I'd finished marriage counseling. We had fixed date for a wedding, and the lady said she didn't want to marry me anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was heartbroken, and I had a recoil. So you know what I mean by recoil. I forgot about marriage and everything. But because I always wanted to get married and have a family of my own, I think 3 years after, I began to have the desire again. So I went to God in prayer. And God said to me, don't talk about marriage with me anymore. When you are ready, I will give you a wife. When you are doing what I've called you to do, and you are serving me, I will give you a wife. So at this point, I was a music minister in Hope Hall, Jim Odutola, Redeemed Christian Church of God, at Jim Odutola. I was the head of the choir, so I put up an advert, the bulletin, for people to join the choir. So when they came to join the choir, they were being introduced to me one after the other. So this particular lady came, shook hands with me.
That's the one I was asking.
So I shook her hands, and I didn't want to leave her hand. And everybody said, Pastor K, leave her alone now. And I was embarrassed. and I left her, but I knew she was my wife. There was a connection. You know?
From the... Okay, so you're saying from the first moment you met your wife,
I knew she was my wife, even though we hadn't talked about it, because you know, there was a connection. I'll give you an example. Bible says when Mary visited Elizabeth, immediately she spoke, the baby in Elizabeth's womb leaped for joy. It's called connection. And then connection doesn't just start when you want to marry. Start exercising connection in other things. When you meet that woman, something inside you should connect. So it's not based on what she looks like.
But when you connect like that,
yeah.
Now
guess what?
Yes.
Even though I connected, I didn't like her. Physically.
You didn't like her?
I didn't like what she looked like physically.
Really?
Yes.
How do you connect with something that you do not like?
Now let me explain to you. Now that's the flesh.
Yes.
Physical attraction. Now, I noticed that I'd been seeing that lady in church. She dresses weird. She carries a knapsack unlike other women. She doesn't carry the proper handbag. She's always on jeans and a jacket. So all those things, I was putting 1 and 2 together like, this kind of woman, God.
She's like a tomboy.
She's like a tomboy. That's what she is. She was like between 4 guys. So she's grown up playboy.
She grew up in the middle of
4 guys.
Okay.
3 older brothers and a younger brother.
Wow.
So she's grown up, you know. And then I noticed that she always is sitting at the talk shop buying Coke and meat pie. So I'm wondering, will this one know how to cook? And not, you know, but you see, these were all my conclusions, as it were, you know. And I made an attempt to start getting to know her, and she too didn't like me. She felt like I was too spiritual. Now, this is what happened. One day, they had a program in her place where she stays at Jalupon, and somebody said, oh, that's Jane's house. So I said, okay, I'll go and look her up after the program. So I went to her. That's the first time she gave me audience. And as we were talking, that's where it clicked. Something happened. You know, one of the things that happened is that in the course of praying, God had told me the name of my wife, Obiageli. So in the course of our discussion, I'm not saying that it must happen like that for you. So in the course of our discussion...
That's why she said you're very spiritual.
Yeah, you know. In the course of our discussion, and I called her Obiageli. She said, who told you my name? And I said, yes, that is the confirmation. So that's where... That's where it started. I'll tell you the truth. When we started our courtship, it was so exciting. I don't know what we were doing, but everybody wanted to love again.
Oh.
We inspired people. It was interesting. When we sit down, everybody see us, they are smiling. It was so interesting. You know, we courted for just 6 months. In fact, I was going to marry her after 3 months. But her parents...
You were that sure?
Yes, I was that. There was no confusion about whether she is or she's not. Now, what I want to say sounds spiritual, though. You don't know anybody in the flesh. If you court for 10 years, in courtship, there's a lot of packaging. And it's only natural. But marriage is the reality. So when you package all that packaging in courtship, when you get, it's like, you know, you get a gift, and it's a package. You know, as you begin to open it, it begins to unravel. You begin to see what is inside the gift pack. That's how marriage is.
Let me talk to you, Patrick. Let's because I want us to come from the past before we come into what's happening today. It's important. Let's see what's different now. Can we hear a bit of what your experience has been?
Actually, my experience was out of the normal, in the sense that at the point I got married, I was not really interested in marriage.
You were not interested?
I was not. Number one, I'm a Catholic, and I still am. And I wanted to go to the monastery. As a little boy, I wanted to be a reverend father. But I grew up to understand. I asked questions, and a lot of people were telling me that, look, as the first son of your father, you are the head of the family, you are the name of the man, and if you go to the church, if you become a priest,
you can't marry, no children.
The family name was closed, and so I was discouraged, and I went on with life. And later, I made up my mind to go to the monastery. It was at that same point that I got what I teach today as divine prompt. I noticed that at a point, everything about me was focused on marriage. It was not where I was going, actually. But I found out that when I talk with people, when I do things with people, it ends up on marriage.
But you were not married?
I was not.
And you had no interest in marriage?
Yes, I had no interest. It ends up in a marriage discussion, actually.
Okay.
I led a group. There's something we call Life in the Spirit Seminar. I led a group in that process, and the group bought a dish for me. And they told me, Brother Patrick, make sure you don't use this dish until you are married. And I also remember that my mother, my father, they were all talking about it because I was between 29 and 30 years at the time. So a question arose in me that why would everybody be talking about marriage? Why is it that everywhere I turn, it's about marriage? So it made me to go into prayers actually and say, God, if you don't want me to go to the monastery, you want me to marry, then to prove to me that you are the one talking, show me who this person will be. And I was then in a church in Ebutemeta called St. Paul's Catholic Church. And I belonged to the charismatic prayer ministry. In the prayer meetings, there's this lady I used to see. I don't talk with her. I don't have anything. I don't really relate with women, like I said, because I never knew I could get married. So I was...
So when you, all this time, the person that you married had been in the same group with
Yes, she was there, but I never noticed her.
But you had never paid her any attention?
I never spoke, I can't remember talking to her for the first time.
And she didn't do anything about that?
She didn't. Even her decision not to be in my group was to ensure that we don't come into contact.
Spiritual people call it vision. The rest of us call it love. To the only woman, lady on the panel, I would like to hear what, you know, a woman's perspective is different. I mean, I've listened to all these men. I have 1 zillion questions for them, but I said, let's wait first. What has been, you've been married for just 6 years.
Yes.
First of all, why did you wait? And what informed your choice to get married?
Well, maybe I should start with the why did I wait question.
Yes.
I've always wanted to have a good marriage. I've had marriages around me that seemed okay, but getting close, you realize, okay, this is not exactly what I believe that marriage should be like. I even used to tell my mom then that, man, I don't pray to marry the kind of husband you're married. And I always
Why is
remember,
that?
because my father was authoritarian. He, everything had to be for him. Everything had to be about him. Everything had to be
His own way.
yes, his way.
He's the man of the house.
Yes, the typical, he comes into the house, you're all trying to make sure that you don't upset him, you don't upset anything. I know women try to do things for their children often, but my mom was more focused on my dad. So a lot of times, you want something, my mom is making sure that she finishes with her husband before she talks to the rest of you or does anything for the rest of you.
But that's how we grew up. That's what we're made to understand. The
Yes.
man is the head.
Yes. So I didn't exactly like that. I felt as a child that you should also focus on us, not on your husband. But then I was learning through all that. Well, I also did not want to have a husband that was authoritarian. As I grew through my teenage years to adulthood, I just always used to tell myself that it's important that I liked who I was going to get married to. So yes, I came across people who come around to do all that. They love you, they like you. For every man I meet that starts to get close, even if we were friends, I start to ask myself, can I marry this person? It was just natural with me. I just start to, either I'm dating the person or not, I start to ask myself, can I marry this person? Do I like the way he does this? Do I like the way he converses? Do I like the way he shouts? All those questions I ask in my head. And if my answers are no to that person and he tries to take it a step further, I withdraw from that friendship. I just always would withdraw if you're not getting the message that I don't want us to get any closer than this. So what informed my deciding to get married was I wanted to be sure that I liked who I was going to get married to. I didn't want to get married to somebody who was just
You were not under pressure.
Of course, I had pressures. I remember some of my friends, one particular friend was saying, Doing, what are you waiting for? I'm like, I just don't want to get married for the sake of getting married. She said, just find somebody.
Were you willing to not get married if you don't find the person?
Yes, I was.
Did that thought ever cross your mind that, look, I'm clocking 30. There are younger ones behind me who are...
I'll be honest, I was. I had told myself that, if I'm not comfortable with the person I want to get married to, and I don't think that I'll be happy in it, I wasn't ready to be miserable. Because for me, I meet people and I'm thinking about the future. I'm not thinking about now. I imagine all kinds of things. It might not be a good thing, but I imagine, what if this guy gets this way? What if he starts to beat me? What if what if I find that he's this kind of person? So I ask myself those kind of questions and I'm like, would I be able to take it? If once my answer is no, then there was a relationship I almost got into. We were friends, and the guy said, oh, I think we should get into a relationship, and I started to consider it. But one day I sat and I was thinking, what if this guy does this to you? I know I have a strong character, and I don't take, it takes a strong man to manage me, really. So my answers were, I would not take it if this guy talks to me anyhow. I would not take it if this person... Did
the man do it before you start to think it, or you just think it
I was just
while the person is just sitting down?
Yes, I was just thinking it. So I was saying, I was just thinking it. I always ask myself questions about whoever I meet.
But how did you know that this is the one?
Okay. So for the person I finally married, I'd known him for up to maybe 16 years.
Wow.
So initially, I would say acquaintances, we lived in the same neighborhood, say hello, and
there was nothing. No. You guys were not looking at each other like...
Okay, not in that manner.
Okay.
So initially, we developed to being friends. Then at some point, I realized I liked him a lot. But I also realized that he wasn't looking at me in that light. So it was just a case of we get to see each other, we gist about things, we talk about things, and then we go. But then, as a woman, I started to act out emotionally sometimes. And one day, he actually said to me, as in when we both had to talk about it, like, look, it's either we remain friends, we have a relationship for which I know I will not be committed, or we part ways. So, of course, I felt like, what do you actually think you're important? So I said, I think we should part ways. Let's go our different ways so that we won't get to see each other anymore. So we parted ways, but we didn't really part ways because we're still living in the same city. So I used to see him every now and again. And somehow it just still happens that once in a while, oh, do you know this is happening? Are you coming for this? So we still get to talk and all that. And we continued to be friends until the point when people started to ask me, are you dating? I'm like, no, we're not dating. But you're always seeing him. He's always seeing you. I said, well, I don't know. Well, I know we're not dating. And then I started to ask myself, really, why do you always have to see this person? Or why does he always have to look out for you? So I said to him one day, I said, you actually know people think that we're dating. He said, yes. I said, so what would you say if you heard tomorrow that I'm getting married? He said, well, I'll be concerned. I would wonder how well the person knows you. I wonder, why you've chosen to marry the person. It will bother me, but knowing myself, I won't do anything about it. One of the reasons I came up to talk about it is I don't want to get to 10 years, 20 years after the time, and then we maybe meet ourselves somewhere, and then we start to talk, like I hear it happens with some people. Oh, I really liked you. Oh, but I didn't know you liked me that much. Maybe if
had I known, that's the senior brother of his too late.
If I knew you liked me, maybe I could have come out to say something, and then I started to regret.
So you didn't want a life of regret.
Yes,
you wanted
so I
to
didn't
just
want
throw
that.
it out all there and then see how that goes. Okay. You have been married for 29 years. And I'm sure that in between that time, you have had your ups and downs and all that has gone wrong in marriages. And you have seen marriages celebrated in front of you and ended in front of you. Now, based on where you're coming from and what you see today, what essentially is wrong? Are we getting something wrong?
Nothing is wrong in the marriages, but what I would just say is the couples does not understand each other properly. Because everybody you have listened to the panel,
yes,
and they have spoken their mind that one way or the other, when they got their partner, it was through God divines or anything. Fine. But the woman and the man.
How long was your courtship for?
My courtship is not just for about 2 years.
2 years?
2 years.
That's a long time, isn't it?
Yes.
But you think that was part of the reason why your marriage is lasting?
No, you need to understand each other properly.
Okay.
That understanding is there. And you must understand your wife properly. And at the same time, try to ignore her wrongdoings. It's not everything she does that you have to take offense on.
As a man?
As a man. Mostly you must endure her because...
you know why I'm surprised you are saying this? Because usually it is women that they tell that.
No. The mouth and the tongue always have fights. And they will settle it amicably within themselves. Nobody comes in to separate it, to mediate into their affairs. So the same thing, couples, when you have disputes, you must tolerate your wife as your own second partner. It's not everything she does that you have to take offense on. So most of the things that is happening today is that we cannot endure ourselves and we cannot tolerate ourselves.
So there's a lack of patience.
Lack of patience, thank you. You can't, everything in life is give and take. Nobody is perfect.
Okay, let me ask this. I mean, you had 2 years. You had 6 months. A year. You had 6 months. And you had 16 years.
No.
Sorry.
She didn't have 16 years of courtship. Courtship is from the day you ask
life.
your spouse,
I know.
will you marry me from that day to the set day of the wedding?
Yes.
That is courtship.
No, does the duration of time that you spend trying to know each other really determine how well you know the person or whether the marriage is going to last?
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't determine. What I see
Can your husband spring any surprises right now? Can he act totally out of character now? Can you predict him?
I can.
Why?
To an extent.
Well,
Why are you saying to an extent?
No, you can't.
I can predict him,
totally.
well, like you said, to an extent. Like you said,
Yes.
surprise. If he does something out of character, it will be a surprise. So yes, he can spring the
Is it-
surprise.
how
but there are certain things I can say categorically my husband will not do.
How can you say that?
It's not in his nature. He would never do it. For example, I know that my husband would never hit a woman, not to talk of me. It is not going to happen.
Do you think that comes from the fact that you were first of all friends and you had known him for a very long time?
No, it comes from his nature, his character, his person, what he also values.
Upbringing.
His upbringing also, yes. I can say
Mr. Shirley, let me ask you the same question. Do you think the duration of courtship or friendship, if you like, of getting to know someone, do you think it has any bearing on how successful that relationship will be?
It has no bearing on it. It doesn't. If you court each other for only 2 months and both of you understand each other very well while you're getting married, you understand?
Can you really understand someone in 2 months? That's my question.
You look at it as if you cannot. Like the man of God have been saying it. They have been saying it. It is God designed. Whatever God does is perfect. And like they have said, if you are going to meet your own right person, your right choice, something will hint you inside you to tell you that this is my partner.
Let me talk to you, King. Let me ask you this question. Is there anybody who is getting married on their wedding day and doesn't think this is the one?
Of course not.
There are people who get married knowing they are marrying the wrong people or wrong person.
Some people.
Yes, some people have
And they go ahead?
The signs are there.
Yes.
Let's not deceive ourselves.
Okay.
I counsel women all the time.
Okay.
You ask somebody, is he a Christian? Oh, he's not a Christian, but he loves God. How do you equate that? And if you don't agree, you become enemy of progress. If you don't agree with them on that part, you become enemy of progress.
Okay.
So I believe that even when you are dating somebody as friendship, there will be signposts here and there. But some choose to just ignore it because of what they want. They want to do ceremony, you know. Okay? You see, marriage is not a fluke, as it were. Good marriage is not a fluke. It's work. So even sometimes, you're not minding the person because you are thinking, oh, it's going to be wonderful, you know. It's a step of faith. It's stepping out on nothing but sure to land on something. So marriage is risky. Marriage is a risky venture. And that's what we Christians call a step of faith. The world calls it risky.
So it's not about the duration of courtship.
No, it has
nothing
to do with it.
I've always thought that. But, you know, people advocate that, you know, take time to study the person you want to spend the rest of your life with.
You see, that's why I said you can't know somebody by studying so much.
Okay.
Yeah, men are deceptive. Yeah, so it's about, you know, somebody leading you, and that's the divine thing we're talking about. You know, leading you. The Bible says to acknowledge him in all your ways, and he will direct your paths. And I think that's one key place where you need God's direction. Now, for instance, growing up as a young man, there were so many things I wanted in a woman. But when I got married later, I found out I was just being foolish. Those things were not important. When I got there, I found out. So, you know, how do you know what is good for you? Sometimes we don't even know what is even good for us. So we just need God's divine...
So sometimes what we're looking for is not really what we need.
No, not really. No.
That is interesting.
That's interesting, yes. Because I remember when I got married, there were some qualities and I began to see my wife. I said, wow, this is wonderful. And I didn't think about this. So it was just God's mercy on me that I found the right partner. So I always advise people that it's 3 steps. The first is recognition, decision, and then commitment.
Recognition,
decision, and commitment. There are 3 steps. That's the way to marriage. The first place is recognition. When you recognize, you make a decision. and then you commit. That's the third step. And that is what...
Let me talk to you on this issue. What is it that we're fundamentally missing in choosing who would be our life partners? There's so much emphasis placed on background.
Okay.
Even from families, when they go and do their searching or whatever, most of the time, a lot of young people are frustrated, women especially, because they use the history of their family to judge them. And I'm saying, does that really matter? You're saying your background can affect the way you matter.
It does. It does to a large extent, because you are who you are because you are coming from somewhere. Now, we agree that globalization, city life, urbanization, whatever you want to call it, is bringing a lot of change in people's life. But the actual truth is that they still end up who they really are. That's what I believe.
Somebody used these words. The Nigerian man hasn't changed, but the Nigerian woman has changed. And so marriages are breaking down. Is this true?
It is true. It is true. Now, we were talking about the past.
Yes.
And what the advice your mother gave you was from the past. In the sense that when you're going into marriage, your parents will tell you, look, every man... Why? Because men were absolutely in charge. It was a world of men. Yes. That's what we used to call it. And so they could do so many things and go away. I had a similar experience. My father had a girlfriend that comes to our farm, digs up cassava, and takes it home to her house. And I remember that
and your
myself...
mom knew?
Yes, and I remember myself and my siblings used to ask my mother, who is this woman to us? How does she relate to us? And she would tell us, shut up. She won't explain anything. She wouldn't explain anything because she felt we were too inquisitive. But when we grew up, we came to know that woman, because actually the woman had triplets for my father.
Wow.
Even though they all died, actually. But she had so that gave rise to it. I remember that when she had that triplet, it was open. It became open. And so it was known to every one of us. But what I'm bringing, today's woman is enlightened. Today's woman is you know, the Beijing experience is there, is still with us. Women are enlightened today. They know their rights. And so when a man is promiscuous or is cheating on her, she feels it's not ordinary. She feels it's not normal. And so wants to assert her rights, actually. You know, that's a situation of enlightenment. Apart from that, you also know that from the pulpit, some of us who preach from the pulpit, we are also coming up, even though we are coming up, making people to understand the real mind of God for marriage.
Mr. Kingsley, let me ask you the question. Is it possible for a man to be faithful in a marriage?
It is possible.
It is?
Yes.
Does it happen?
Yes, of course. I'm faithful. But in saying all that, every man has the tendency to be unfaithful.
Because we're saying that...
Did you hear what I said?
You said
every man has the tendency to be unfaithful.
To be unfaithful?
Yes.
Yes.
So it now boils down to commitment and the fear of God.
Is it possible, do you think, it is possible to have a totally monogamous marriage?
Yes, I think it's possible.
Do you believe that your husband is faithful?
I would not say yes, but I think it's possible to have a monogamous marriage.
Because when you say, I will not say yes, and the truth of the matter is that if you ask a lot of women here who are married, they'll probably answer same as you. Most would, because that is our psyche. That is what we are trained to believe, that it is acceptable. Would you, if you found out, for instance, that your husband had a serious girlfriend or a child outside, would you leave him?
I wouldn't.
Do you think, if for any reason you also have a shortcoming and you fell prey and you had an extramarital affair, if you confessed it to your husband, would he leave you?
He wouldn't leave me.
He wouldn't leave you?
Yes.
And you're sure about that?
I'm sure about that.
Then I respect that. Mr. Shidele, yes. You wanted to say something?
Right from the day I got married,
yes.
My father got married to 3 wives.
Okay.
And I have vowed that I am only going to stick myself to only one woman in my life. And I'll do that. I have stood by that principle.
For
and
the
it's still
past
working for me.
29 years,
Yes.
you have had only one wife.
Only
even
one
though
wife,
you are-
and no extra material.
Wow.
Confirming that. I'm confirming that. But you know, you must always have trust in each other. The two couples must have trust in each other. Like Madam really said, and prepare yourself for evil day. If my wife cheats on me, I won't be there. If I cheat outside, she won't be there. But one thing is certain, the fear of God. So let everybody always know that the conscience will judge he or her.
Okay. Well, you know the good part is that when you listen to all this, then a lot of us can learn why your marriages are working. Now, there's a new trend in society that I would like us to talk about, which is what I said, baby mamas and baby daddies, where women don't seem to think there's a big deal in having children. In fact, they prefer it. They struggle to be baby mamas, so to speak. What is giving rise to this in society? Why do we have, I mean, I thought it was totally on Nigeria to hear that a woman is proud. You hear, she had the first one. Let's say first one is mistake, then second, then third. The man hasn't married her. And then the guy goes again. The same guy that everybody knows has a baby mama, has like 2 other baby mamas, and he's just populating the earth. But no commitment to anyone in particular. What is it about our society and our values that has brought this to play? How can this be addressed? Don't go away. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. We're still talking marital values. And before we went on the break, I was telling you about a very un-Nigerian trend that has crept into Nigeria. What would be the reason for this? Let me start with you, Doi.
Well,
Especially as it concerns women.
I think it's more because it's now it's accepted. People don't frown, it's not frowned at. Back in the, should I say 80s? I knew myself well in the 80s. So let's say back in the 80s, 90s, getting pregnant for anybody was like a taboo if you were single. It was, you couldn't even come home to tell anybody that you were pregnant. If you came home and your parents said you were pregnant, they'll be, you know, everyone will be trying to find a way to hide it. Maybe you should go to grandma's place to have the baby, let people not know. But now, it seems like it's accepted, it's okay.
Well, it's just the wife values, like we say. Where I come from, if a woman is pregnant, she can't even get married while she's pregnant. She has to wait till she's run through the pregnancy. So it's a taboo. In some cases, if it's not properly settled, the child actually bears the woman's maiden name. Yeah. So one of the reasons people are having children, a lot of people don't believe in marriage anymore. I do a lot of counseling, and people just get into marriage. What can I do? It's a necessary evil.
Mr. Ashidele, what do you think is responsible for our attitude?
Well, you have attributed this thing to lack of parental care.
Yes.
First, let us take it. A parent that does not train the daughter and at a young age got impregnated, gave birth, and could not at the same time cater or care for the child that small girl is even carrying, what becomes of that person in future? So this thing is an occurrence something that is transferring from one generation to the other, another.
My question is this. Does age has impact in marital affairs and marriages? And another thing is there a marriage whereby you can advise people or the husband or the wife to go for divorce? Because there are some cases whereby it's not the man you know before the marriage. That's the man you know when you get into the marriage. Because, for example, in my home, my mom did tell me that my dad, the way he was before the marriage, that's the way he is now. When doing their courtship, they fight, but the way they settle it, nobody know. And I still see that now, because when they argue in my presence, I'll discover that the next day they talk, as in they come back to normal. And there are sometimes that I pray they even fight, because when they fight, it is easier for me to collect something from any of them. Does age has impact in marriage? And also, is it possible to have a successful polygamous marriage? That is, can you advise somebody to go into polygamous marriage also?
There's no age barrier in marriage.
When you marry somebody who's much older than you,
It doesn't really matter.
does it make it easier to have a successful marriage? I guess that's the question
Yes.
you're asking.
Yes. Somebody older than you. So it has, you see, I will talk from experience. We have seen most marriages that the wife is older than the man and is successful.
Really?
Yes. Very, very successful.
What about when the man is older than the woman, which is usually what happens?
But when a woman is older, it's always successful. I don't know why. Probably the woman will, the man will respect her age.
On the question of having a
Successful polygamous marriage.
Yes. First, the way to answer that for me is, what's your measure of success? Because some persons might say, oh yes, it's possible. For me, I would say no. Why, if you, the reason you would probably go to marry a second woman is because you have an issue with the first one.
Marriage is a covenant relationship. And in the covenant relationship is man and woman. And the purpose, God's purpose for two of you coming together is to become one.
My question first, before I give my question, I said to the society first. And the society has lost its place value and birthright, which gives a great increase to the juvenile problems you have today and to the faulty backgrounds of the children. One, my question goes to the mommy here. Now, I've looked at the permutation and combination of all your observations.
You have looked at the permutation and the combination.
Yes, yeah, of all you have said after the panels. Now, you have not really tell us about the characters in that man you said you choose, and to our daddy and to this four panel and the height of the thing. One, you have not given us the character. Are you looking at the tall man? Are you looking at the short man? Or like a light complexion man? Or dark person? What is the character that you find in that woman, in that man? And to the other men also, what the character you find in the woman that God really showed to you? Okay, I want a tall woman. I want a short man. Is he fat? Is he short? He didn't even give us that. Because nowadays, if you look at the, what's it called, our women nowadays and we the youth, you only look at, okay, I want a tall woman. I want her to be light in complexion. I want her to be short. I want her to be maybe cripple and so like that. So I want you to.
Okay, so he's talking about the physical attributes.
Yes.
Let me let Kingsley.
I told you that when I saw her, I didn't like her physically, but
Yes,
I knew she was my wife.
So
It's beyond all that. You're still a young man. When you get married, you will remember that Pastor Kingsley said it's not in all that. Yeah, even sometimes people think that, it's all about sex and all that. A time will come in marriage, sex will be lying by your side. You don't want. That day is coming. So all those gym, all those things, naturally, men like the thing that shook your eye. But I just want to advise you that marriage is more than all that. It's about virtue. It's about values. What has the woman? The inner beauty is better than the outward appearance. Why? Because the inner beauty will affect the outward. And that woman who looked like she's not will become beautiful, as it were. Scripture says that as a ring in a swine's snout, so is a beautiful woman that lacks discretion.
I am Olarinwaju by name. I noticed that your relationship can only make you or mar you. The more you endure in relationship, just try to endure more in marriage. Because if you are saying this person can lie and you can endure that during your courtship, definitely plan to endure more during marriage. Now, the Bible says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and every other thing shall be added unto you. Exactly. With what I was taught, right from background, they said, whatever you see but. Then the previous chapter was saying that the Heavenly Father knows what we need of. Definitely, if you are to marry, I know, as a son of God, I can never marry wrongly. Why? Because even at my teenage age, I still hear from God. And if you hear from God, I tell you this, you can never marry wrongly. Now, my question is this. Do we advise during courtship for the lady to be cooking for the husband to be?
Well, the question about whether it's okay or not, I'm concerned about that question because it means that you think that marriage is about having somebody who can cook. And I don't want to believe that, or I don't agree that that's what marriage should be about. I want...
what I think, let me try and do it the way I think, because what happens with a lot of young people, where the girlfriend is already acting like a wife.
Yeah. Okay. So it's also because of the expectations of the men. Because I was once introduced to someone, and okay, I was trying to get to know him, and then one day he goes, "Oh, when are you coming to visit me?" I'm like, "Oh, I won't have the time." Say, "Yeah, come now. I stay in so please come. At least let's spend some time together and all that, and at least you help me cook." So I'm like, "Oh."
Is that why you want me to go?
No, I didn't say that. I played along with him. I said, unfortunately, I don't know how to cook. First he was quiet. Said, seriously? I said, no, I've been blessed with, cousins, sisters that live with me. They do the cooking. I'm that spoiled. So he said, oh, okay. He was quiet. Then he went back to see the guy that we knew each other through and that girl doesn't know how to cook. So the guy called me and said, come on, how can you tell this guy you don't know how to cook? I said, oh, is he looking for a cook? Why would he be telling, so yes.
I will support the last speaker from what you have said, because personally, before I got married, I wanted to understand the woman I'm getting into. So I placed that on so many tests. Not about even cooking. There are a lot of things. How can you stomach something like you have already said here now? If your wife should know that you are dating another woman, how would she feel? So I've put her into such tests to know
what her reaction would be.
What would be her reaction? And I see that when I throw something on that like that to her, she's like, how would you have done such a thing? Okay, but it has not happened. But I want to know how she will feel, whether from that day she starts talking to me. But she never. She'll still continue with her normal way. I don't say anything wrong in I have proposed to marry you and you are coming home to cook for me. I want to feel you. I want to know how you can cook. It's not only about cooking alone, but it's part of the
African culture.
African culture, part of it. Because I want to know the kind of woman.
So that she doesn't enter the house and start to use the back of spoon to stomp.
I
have
There's
a question.
an experience I have of a neighbor who got married.
Then they'll be using Maggi cookbook.
No. Before she gets home, she'll have gone to the fast food, put food in the cooler, bring it home. And the husband she's married to is from Edo area. He's a typical native person that wants to be eating aku all the time. She understand? Each time the lady, what she can do best is frying plantain and egg for the husband. And the husband does not like it. So at the end of the day, the marriage
will pack up.
Pack up.
But question I'd like to ask is, are you marrying the person because they know how to cook? Yeah. What if you
shouldn't the person know how to cook?
It's part of the element. It is not as if
Let me just say something. What if you know how to cook? Can you not teach the person how to cook? My mom once told me a story. She comes from a very large family. One mother, but very large family. Lots of cousins. So cooking was just get all the things into the pot, put the meat, just let it go. Like Yoruba people call it bonwowo, and then the stew is ready. And when she got married, that was her style of cooking. And my father was like, no, I can't, this is not working. This is how my mother cooks. You fry the pepper. So you can teach the person what you like.
Normal. That makes the woman to be substitute to the man that I don't know how to cook. Then the husband will now know that, okay, what I'm marrying, I know I'm
marrying. All right, so on that note, I'd like to take last lines from you. Something you want the viewers at home to go away with on today's episode. You guys have done fantastic with this topic. And I know that a lot of us have learned things from this. But just the last line. Sir, Mr. Ashitele, something you...
my advice to the audience is just to be prayerful when you want to have your wife. Prayerful after getting it, be tolerant with the woman and be faithful to your woman as well.
Especially to women.
Yes, especially to women. There is really no need to hurry. There is really nowhere you're running to. You can wait and be married to the right person. You can wait and be married to someone that you're going to be happy with for the rest of your life. So there's really no need to, there's no finish line to say, oh, I have to get there before I'm 25. I have to get there before I'm 30. Remember that you're going to be there for the rest of your life. So waiting is important.
Well, I'd like to address the men. In this part of the world, women are taught to behave in such a way, but the men are not taught anything. But I believe some men say, oh, I'm not domestic. Nobody was born domestic. You can learn to be domestic. And then as a man, learn to be flexible. Flexibility is not a compromise of principles. Change is inevitable. In fact, your willingness to change as a man shows that you're a winner. So how many winners do we have here?
He said, how many winners do we have?
How many winners do we have here?
Yay.
God bless you.
My last take is on godliness, actually. If we have a godly society, those values we are looking for are in God. And so if we are godly, we portray godly values. And if we do that, our society will be better, our families will be better, we'll be able to raise good homes and good children, and raise godly children for God.
Let me say a very big thank you to you for this topic. A lot has been learned here, a lot has been said here. Hopefully we will begin to imbibe some of these things that we've heard and learned on the program and start to give a little more value to our thought to our decisions about our life partners, about our homes, because it's a total reflection of what is going on in society here right now, the failure in our value system. A very big thank you to all of you. Thank you to my audience as well for your very useful contributions. If you have comments or suggestions, please send us an email at insideoutwithagatha@yahoo.com or facebook.com/insideoutwithagatha, or follow us on Twitter at Inside Out Media. I'd like to say a very big thank you to Oba for my hair, Olufunke Ilori for my makeup, and to Kelu, image consultant, for styling me. Until next week when we come your way again talking about something else equally as interesting. Bye-bye and see you next week.